Hello. Well, if you're a little bit climate sceptic, global warming sceptic, then this is one for you. It's a story guaranteed to warm the cockles of your heart, or maybe freeze them a bit. But first, I have to remind you of those amusing insurance company stories that surface from time to time. You know, the ones where the claims form for an accident contains a story that stretches the limits of credibility. For instance, there's one where a farmer had to claim for a lost iPhone after he accidentally left it inside a cow while he was helping to deliver a calf. And the one where the man lost his dentures in the ocean while being seasick over the side of the ship. Even in Sweden, home of Saint Greta, principal prophet of the "we're all going to die in a fiery apocalypse" religion. Yeah, well, there might be some red faces even in Sweden, and not from sunburn, that's for sure, as they explain, well, as suppliers explain to their irate customers who didn't get that Satsuma teapot from Japan in time for Mor's birthday. That's grandma to you. Seeing as the ship carrying the goods via the northern route has been stuck in a sudden ice apocalypse for the past 2 weeks, after temperatures plummeted way below seasonal levels, without either warning or prediction. I am, of course, referring to news from Russia, where there's been a meltdown, not in Siberia, by the way, but in the boardrooms of the Russian shipping firms, as they melt down over a freeze that wasn't predicted, as the Daily Telegraph explains. Dozens of ships stuck in Arctic as ice freezes early, in reverse of recent warming winters. And then shipping firms blame the Russian Met Office for a forecast that failed to predict the early ice. And this is written by a lady with the thoroughly Russian name of Natalia Vasilyeva, described as the Russia correspondent. More than 24. So look, here's a picture of the expedition ship, whatever that means, the Mikhail Somov, which is stuck in the ice in the Vilkitsky Strait. To any Russians watching, my apologies. More than 24 cargo vessels are stuck in Russia's Arctic ice, waiting for icebreakers to come to their rescue after an inaccurate forecast from the country's Met Office. It did look for a time as if the northern seas have been warming up a bit, and with that in mind, Putin has been very energetically pursuing a policy of establishing Russian control over various parts of the northern landmasses in an effort to secure Russian primacy over the waterway. They've had a couple of spats with Canada over that. I'll find a clip of it and I'll put it here. Of course, Justin Trudeau hasn't been able to do very much because he's incompetent. And so Russia is riding an icebreaker over well-established Canadian territorial rights. But that's another matter. So the idea of a northern passage has become increasingly fashionable, what with China and its aggressive bid for the South China Sea, building artificial islands to establish hegemony over the East Asian sea routes. And looking years ahead, which very few leaders do, Putin has been very obviously locking horns, as I say, with Canada to establish a Russian route there. He's invested a lot in that, but if there's one thing of which we can all be absolutely sure, it's the unpredictability of the weather systems. That's why when some meteorologist tells you the glaciers will all be gone by 2015, or all the penguins in Antarctica will have died of sunstroke by 2012, you can bet your last krona that it's not going to happen. When predicting the weather systems, very often we might just as well kill a chicken and mess about with its entrails. Let's see what else it says here. Maritime traffic in the Northern Sea route has been on the rise in recent years as rapidly warming winters reduce ice cover and Russia invests in its Arctic ports in preparation for a further boom. But this year, several segments of the Northern Sea route froze up about a fortnight earlier than usual, catching many ships unawares. Alexei Likhatchov, Director General of the Russia's state-owned nuclear energy company, I don't know, Rosatom, which managed the country's nuclear power fleet of icebreakers, said on Monday that the ships included vessels sailing under the flags of Hong Kong and Marshall Islands. He blamed the Russian Met Office for a forecast that failed to predict the early ice in comments on local media. Companies shipping goods via the Northern Sea route typically book a Rosatom icebreaker in advance to accompany their vessel, but did not this time as they were assured of good weather. Victor Gill, captain of the Mikhail Somov, one of the ships stranded along the Northern Sea route, told the TASS news agency that the situation was quite dire. The ice is up to 1.5 meters thick here, he said, but added that the crew had supplies enough to last. All right. Mr. Likhatchov said icebreakers were already on their way to the stranded vessels, but warned that the rescue operation could take some time. So there you have it. And this is where I go back to those unlikely insurance claims. How are the governments going to tell their people that this time the supply chain is broken, not because of fuel shortages, not because of a man who polished his SUV with wax that smelled of bananas and then had to claim for horse damage when a herd tried to eat his car. No, in this case, it's the excuse that the North is freezing up again. And they're never going to believe it. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to